If you've ever had that sensation that the runway ahead feels shorter than the runway behind, that can often lead to a sense of regret and wondering, I wish I could have, or why didn't I? And I've created the regret release method, which we'll talk about in this session. It's to help you identify those regrets and then figure out how to use them to fuel your future.
Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I bring you interesting and inspirational stories from amazing women leaders who will help you find the path forward, find your North Star, figure out where you're going to go next, and not do it alone. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, a thriving network community supporting women leaders to get board roles, find your next, and do business together in our Women Entrepreneurs Masterminds. We also have a special group just for you, our listeners, called Women on the Move, where you can meet our speakers and guests from this show. Check it out at hercsuite.com. I'm thrilled to bring you LeeAnn Marie Webster today. She is the guest that I met at WGN thanks to Diane Boyer, and I can't wait for you to hear all about the story in our conversation. LeeAnn is the creator of the Regret Release Method. She is an attorney, keynote speaker, Moth Story Slam winner, and entrepreneur with 20 years of experience coaching and marketing. Her first TV appearance was as a contestant on MTV's Remote Control. She's also been seen on NBC, The Huffington Post, and the LA Times. And I know that you are going to learn so much about this idea of regret release method. So let's get started with that now. LeeAnn, I'm so excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. I'm super excited to be here.
We have such a fun story about how we met, and I can't wait to share that with all our listeners. But I always start really with understanding a little bit about you, and then we're going to talk about how we met. So you've had a really interesting career, and you've done, and you have, like, by the way, you know, some pretty cool things that you've done that not many people have ever done. So share a little bit about this interesting background.
Now I'm like, what have I done? What have I done?
Yes. I have a cheat sheet if you need me to use it.
So I've had a winding career that's I can paint a story for why it all makes sense. I've been a lawyer. I've got 20 years. We just stopped counting after 20 years of coaching experience. I've got 20 years of marketing and business development experience. I've climbed mountains. I'm an Ironman. I've written books. I don't know. What do you want to know?
So many things. So many things. The way that we met is really going to dive into all that you just shared, because it was really serendipity, I think, that we ended up at the same place on this freezing day in January 9th. And it was a big day. You know, there was a lot going on. There was the funeral for President Carter. So there was all these things going on. And we had never met, but I don't know what it was, but we instantly connected. So we were on WGN, and there was a segment, fashion, I think it was Fashion Over 50 or something like that, or some, you know, fashion files. So yes, listeners, we are both over 50. Newsflash. Oh, I just ruined it. What are you saying right now? We're ageless, but we are actually over 50. But we went to this event, and there's this teeny tiny room. Like, that room was pretty small, right? Like, I think there was another room that I never went in, but the room that we were in was like 8 by 8. I don't know. It was tiny. It was so tiny. And we come in, and I'm stressing out because I have to be someplace. And I look across, and you're like, oh, that's not that far. And we just started talking, and we hit it off. And then the rest is history. Here we are. But yeah, it was so fun to do that event and be on the WGN set. Like, I had never been to that TV studio before.
Yeah.
Wasn't that interesting? A lot of Bozo the Clown was there.
There was a lot of Bozo.
Okay.
Lot of
Yeah, there's
Bozo.
Bozo.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a lot of history.
Yeah. And I think it's so fun to do stuff like that. I mean, just because we never think about like, what's the TV studio look like or what's happening and what are all the things behind the scenes? Because we just never see the like one person or whatever. But what I loved about it too was just that there's just some people that you meet and you just have that synergy with. And it's just like, oh my God, I like you. We're going to totally play together
I
because
know,
yes.
right? Yes. I mean, we started talking. We found out that we both know euchre. That for our listeners, it's a card game oftentimes played in college in Michigan,
Yeah.
in
And
Ohio. I think
Ohio.
Ohio,
Ohio.
yeah, Ohio, which is the interesting part because I went to Michigan and Ohio State, so there's that like potential for that. And I think you're from Ohio, right? You're from yeah, so we have that synergy in Ohio
Yes.
and Michigan. We'll
Yes.
leave it at that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I went to Ohio University. I didn't go to the Ohio State University. So that's why we can be friends,
That's
by the
why
way.
we can be friends. Exactly. So we got to talking about the work that you do, and that's even another layer. And so I want to encourage our listeners, if you meet someone, just be open and curious about how you're connected. And so we started talking, and that was another layer of why we really did connect, was the work you're doing. And since then, you've come in and spoken at her C-suite at our Next Career, which was really well received. But how did you decide to do that work and talk about what that is, that work that I'm talking about, which is the regret release, which is so powerful?
Thank you. Well, so the nutshell of what I do is I help women leaders who want to stop putting off the big goals that really matter so they can live with no regrets and no limits. I came to that because, as I've been looking at my life, as we often do, especially when we pass certain milestones. And when I was looking at like, where have I been? What have I done? I've been a lawyer. I've been this, I'm a speaker. And it's like all these hats that I've worn and this kind of wild journey. And I thought, well, what is it really, 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 really about? And what am I really about? Like, what's the mark I really want to leave on the world? And that synergized down into the no regrets, no limits idea, because I realized through my whole life, no matter what I've been doing, I've really been about helping others take their power back and achieve their goals. And in a way that has them saying, like, I don't want to regret that. I want to wonder what if. And to me, that's the saddest thing is if you're sitting in life and saying, well, I wish I would have taken that chance. I wish I would have done this differently. I wish I would have gone to Italy. It's like, no, you don't have to wish. Like, let's sort it out, sister. Let's go do it.
It's so powerful to think about. It could be such a small thing too. I think people a lot of times put this big regret as
Right.
the thing, but it doesn't have to be. And you shared, I mean, not a dry eye in the house when you were sharing some of the things, but I want to, for our listeners to understand, you've been on this journey of asking people, and you've heard from 1,000 people, right? Or more,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
I collect regrets now, which is kind of a weird thing to do,
But
but I
so
do.
interesting.
There. So if you ever see me speak in person, I have this, I'll have you do a postcard where you fill it out in your own writing. And then I also have a virtual version. Of course, I speak to a lot of people virtually now. And I've collected more than 1,000 now regrets. And they're just so powerful because they just speak to the big things, but also the little things that kind of niggle around in your soul. I think there's a lot of power in unearthing them. And then also, how can you take these and have them help you fuel your future and say, okay, now that this is here, let me clear it out. And then what do I do now moving forward?
And when you came in and spoke for us, and I did not know the story, but I'd love for you to share the story of, because you learned this so young and such a hard thing to go through. Can you share what happened when you were only
Absolutely.
4? I think it was 4, right?
I was 4, yeah. So when I was 4 years old, I had 3 brothers, 3 older brothers. They were 10, 12, and 14 years old at the time. My parents divorced when I was 3, and we all went with my dad, which was unusual at the time. But there's reasons for that. And so one spring morning when I was 4, my brothers were out playing, and my middle brother, Daniel, got killed in a car accident. Riding his bike down a busy street, he just didn't see the car. It was just one of those freak accidents. And so he was 12 at the time. And, that really is the why of why I do what I do, because no one knew that day was going to be his last day. You would never know that. You would never expect that, like a 12-year-old. And I feel that that means those of us who are here, like we have a chance. We've been given another day. We have an opportunity. Like, let's take that opportunity and use it to live our lives to the fullest. And so he's the why of why I do what I do.
And for your whole life. I mean, he's been your North Star in that way to,
100%.
guiding star, which is so it's a very personal story and a beautiful way to pay tribute to him, to pay it forward with look at all those people that sent you their regrets. And so I'd like you to share a little bit about some of the things that you've heard, because I feel like sometimes we think, as I said, it should be really big or unexpected.
So I pulled 3 cards to talk about today, and I feel like they span the realm. One is not realizing my parents were just figuring it out sooner, which is, the gift of hindsight when you're is like, oh wow, they were really doing the best that they can, So I'll read these and then we can talk about like how you use them to move forward. This one gets me, and I've had a few that are similar to this. Not answering a phone call from my friend at 9:53 a.m. They hit a tree at 9:58 a.m. and she died along with her 10-year-old and her husband. And then not going to Hawaii when I had the chance at age 20, I've yet to go and I'm almost 50. So they span, and what I feel like with these, what I've realized that this is part of my like work in the world is to help people alleviate some pain and from trauma. And I feel like this is how I can help them do it. Because even though they might not have thought of this, it might not be something you think of every day for any of these, but there's a little part of you. There's a little part of this woman who never went to Hawaii. There's a little part of her that's saying, do I take the chance? I wish I would take the chance. I wish I would have taken the chance. And for her, she could book a trip to Hawaii, or she could just say, you know what, I'm gonna, take another trip, or I'm gonna focus on what's important for me. I'm gonna think about what I really want to do. Maybe it's not Hawaii anymore. Maybe it's, going to New York or California, or I don't know. But taking that and saying like, okay, let me forgive myself for not doing this and understand, and then say, what can I do now, understanding this to create the path I do want to create.
Yeah, is there a ritual that someone could think of in the day once you've identified these things and you do your release method? What's a ritual that you can really this today? Like how could you wake up? I know that I try to do gratitude every morning or think of someone. What do you do? What is something that you do every morning?
Yeah, so I'm very much about the gratitude. I do gratitude every morning as part of I meditate, and then I write things I'm grateful for. And then I also bookend it at the end of the day, and I write 3 favorite moments from the day just to kind of reflect back a little bit. And so I think that's your opportunity. If you didn't say what you wanted to say, or if there's something that you're like, "Oh, maybe I want to clean that up," or, wow, I wish I would have taken that opportunity today. Tomorrow I'm going to do better. That's your moment where you can start to kind of crystallize that and say like, all right, first thing when I get up, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is, it has to be something that's you're able to do that comes and feels good to you. Because I know, like, I started meditating, but only within the last few years. Before that, I thought, oh, meditation, I can't do it. Da da da. So you have to do it in the time that's good for you and the way that it works for you. But I really like the idea of morning and night. I haven't done the nighttime, but I think that's such a great opportunity. And I'm wondering, does that help sleep? Because if you kind of reflect back on your day and you write it out, are you less worried when you go to sleep?
Well, that's a great question. Kind of depends on what you're doing with it, right? Are you doing it to say, I messed up, I shouldn't have done that, I wish I wouldn't, like, are you, do you have the stick out? Are you beating yourself up? Then you're not going to sleep
No.
well.
Yeah, no.
Or are you using it to say like, wow, like, last night's a great example. Yesterday afternoon, I had a beautiful conversation with a friend who was helping me with something I was kind of struggling with. And so, I wrote, Lisa chat and it was like, oh, like, wow, I felt so supported and I felt so loved. And it was so nice to have a friend to call to talk with this about. And so if you're viewing it through that lens, then it's beneficial and shouldn't disrupt your sleep. Even if it's something that you see and it's like, wow, I wish I would have done that differently, instead of saying like, and now, I suck and I can't believe I did that. Instead, it's like, wow, I wish I would have done that differently. Okay, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to send them a note, or, next time that opportunity comes up, I'm going to take it a little bit differently. And that way you're getting it to more neutral or positive energy. And
What have you seen with the women that you're working with as transformational? What has happened for them in a transformational way?
yeah, well, one of the biggest stories I always tell is with one of my clients. I can't remember if I told it the other day, who she heard me speak and we did the thing. And she realized in that conference that she had this terrible regret around her nephew because it had been a few years before, but she was very close with her nephew and they'd gotten in this argument and then he had suddenly and tragically died like a week later. And so she felt this horrible guilt that the last conversation they had was an argument. She never got to apologize or resolve it. So on the way home from the conference, from hearing me speak and doing that exercise, she called her sister, his mother, and they had a conversation about it for the first time in years. The sister forgave her. So it relieved her soul, but it also put them on a different trajectory. And most importantly, she was stepping into the role of being president of her bank. She's in a rural city and she's the first ever president, 100 and some, I don't know, 20, 50 years, I don't know what it is, of that bank's history, never had a woman president. She was stepping into that role. And so just relieving that kind of pressure valve helped her step more into her leadership, helped her be more decisive, helped her kind of take the monkey off the back a little bit. And a lot of times we've had the monkey on our back so long, we don't realize that it's there, that really opened her up to say like, okay, let me forge a new path moving forward.
There's so many beautiful things about that. One is forgiving yourself and realizing that this happened and having her sister say he wouldn't want you to feel this is also so powerful. And then getting together. I mean, those are just such beautiful ways. And that she was able to then step in fully into her leadership, which is really the work that you're doing.
Right.
And I know that you have now taken all this information and you're coming out with a book. So tell me about the book.
I'm so excited. It's called That's Regrettable, Releasing the Past to Fuel Your Future. And like you said, I've collected more than 1,000 regrets. And so the book is going to be a more graphic novel, right? Because what I think is powerful about these, especially the postcards, is they're in somebody's handwriting. They're anonymous. They're all anonymous. And so there'll be, it's a very visual book. Could be like a coffee table or something just to see what others are releasing. And then I also will include my regret release method to talk about like, okay, if you recognize this regret, then what do you do with it? And how do you move forward from it? I want the book to be inspirational and not heavy.
Right. You don't want to feel everyone's regret. You don't want to have your heart be heavy with knowing the 1,000 regrets, because that can actually, you can absorb that and then that can really you. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of visually in the vein of like Post Secret, if you know that book, like that book where people send in their secrets. And so some are funny and some are whimsical and some are heavy. And so it's going to be a potpourri, and it's designed to have you say like, I'm not alone. That's a big thing. And that's what I see in these cards all the time is, even the woman with the text that, she didn't answer the text from a friend and then they died. I have multiple ones of a similar thing, right? I didn't answer the call when my friend called and then they died or then something happened. And so it's like, you're not alone, but that woman probably feels really alone and she probably is carrying some guilt. So part of what I want to do is say like, you're not alone. We all make mistakes. We all have things we'd like to do differently. So there's that. And here's how you do that.
And your framework is available. Now you have a new place that people can find it. So where I signed up for it, so I already have an inkling about it. But for our listeners who haven't heard about it yet, where can they go to find out about it?
Yes, actually, it's regret release method. So if you go regretreleasemethod.com, then that will actually walk you step by step through my process. It's really simple and it'll help you with identifying and then releasing and then how to take action afterwards. And you can submit online anonymously. You put in your name and your email to get all the information, but then there's an anonymous way to submit your actual regret. So I want to keep those private.
Amazing. I think when it is anonymous, it really releases you to be able to be authentic, to share, to not hold anything back, because no one's knowing it except the universe that you just released, which is amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's why I've been able to collect such powerful regrets, is because it's not like, oh, well, at this women's meeting, you know what I mean? A
Yeah,
female. So
totally.
you're like, no, I don't know. I don't know who they are.
Exactly. Well, if people want to learn more about you, they want to connect with you. Obviously, you're in her C-suite. So I love that you are a member of our community and people can connect with you there. But if people are not yet a member, they should join. But if they're not yet, where should they go to find out about you?
You can always go. You can do the regretreleasemethod.com. You can also, my full name.com is my website, LeeAnnMarieWebster.com. And type all that in for LinkedIn or Instagram, or in fact, on Instagram, I do actually LinkedIn too. I do post once a week. I highlight one of these cards or some of the, I do stuff out in the wild. So I highlight all that too. So
exciting. I can't wait for people to find out more. And I'm so excited that we had this opportunity. I hope that our listeners understand how important it is to release these things so that they can move forward. And I'm glad that we had this conversation, LeeAnn. Thanks for being on the show.
Me too. I love it. Thanks for hosting me. And I'm excited where our journey is going to go. Who knows?
Who knows? Lots of amazing things. Lots of amazing things. Thanks for being on the show. Thank you for spending your time with us today. I know I got so much out of conversation with LeeAnn, and I hope that you will visit regretreleasemethod.com to find a way to release whatever is on your heart so that you can move forward. If you found this podcast interview helpful, I'd be so grateful if you would share it with a friend or colleague and rate and review the show. It's how people find us. Keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.